Hello, everyone. Welcome. My name is Bonnie Brzozowski. I'm a public services librarian at the Corvallis-Benton County Public Library. I'm here to welcome you to this presentation where we are going to be talking about the downtown Willamette River parks. This is the third in the 2025 Liz and Bob Frenkel Hiking and Environment Spring Webinar Series. The theme for this year's series is String of Pearls, the Magic of Corvallis River Parks. So as you can tell, we will be learning all about Corvallis's river parks. There were two previous virtual events in this series. On March 26th, we heard about the South Corvallis Willamette River Parks, and on April 23rd, we heard about the Marys River Parks. If you missed these events and you'd like to view the recordings, I am going to share them in the chat now. Just give me just a moment to do that. There they are. So please enjoy those videos. They were excellent events. They are also on the Corvallis-Benton County Public Library's YouTube channel, where you can find previous videos from previous years of the Frenkel series. This is not the first year we've done the Frenkel series. So there are many others in this series from previous years, and I'm going to share a link to see that playlist on our YouTube channel if you'd like to take a look. So as I'm sure you've noticed, we're using Zoom tonight. Please feel free to submit questions throughout the presentation tonight. We will try to answer some of those at the end. You click or tap on the question mark to submit your questions, though that does vary depending on the device you're using. So that's all from me for now until the question and answer segment. I'm going to hand it over to Dave Eckert. He's the program chair for the Mary's Peak Group of the Sierra Club. He's going to be telling us a bit more about the Frenkel series, as well as doing some presenting himself and introducing us to our other presenter that we will hear from in a little bit. Take it away, Dave.
Okay, there we go. Okay, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, thanks you very much. And let me take this from the beginning. Welcome to the Liz and Bob Frenkel Hiking and Environmental Spring Lecture Series. And those of you who didn't know Liz and Bob Frenkel, I feel so deeply sorry for you. They were wonderful people and powerhouses in both the scientific and the advocacy areas of natural resources. And they worked on the local, state, regional, and national level and had great impacts. And we are honoring them with this spring lecture series that we've been holding for quite a few years. We are also honoring the land, Champinafu. This is the homeland of the Ampinafu Kalapuya. It still is. And many of those people live at either the Confederated Tribes of the Grand Ronde, Confederated Tribes of the Siletz Indians, or just in the general Pacific Northwest and sometimes throughout the United States. We do a Champinafu series in the fall, which we're very happy to work with the Confederated Tribes of the Grand Ronde on. And it's, I hope you are all watching it in the fall. These are our three sponsors. As Bonnie had said, this was founded by the Mary's Peak Group of the Sierra Club. And then in something like 2021, I might be getting a year off or so, during the pandemic, the Corvallis-Benton County Public Library joined as a co-sponsor and became the host of the series that we do virtually. And then a few years later, the Corvallis Sustainability Coalition joined in, particularly when we're doing anything to do with water. Okay, so very quickly through a couple of the programs that we've run in the past. In 2021, the gift series, and you can see the three areas that the Frenkels gave large bequests to help them in their regeneration, and deeply grateful for that. This next year was Beavallis, and we talked about local beavers on the state level with beavers, and on the national and global level with beavers. And I really also highly recommend that. Third year, we did some revived or regenerated wetlands in this local area. We did three we had three excellent presenters and a lot of fine photography also. And I hope you watch that one. It's on the YouTube. And then last year we did transforming Mary's Peak from how people transformed it in the past, how we're transforming it as we speak, and how we will continue to transform it as humans. This year, it's the Magical River Parks of Corvallis. And this, like Bonnie said, this is the third in the series. The first one we did, presented by Gwendolyn Ellen, was the South Corvallis Willamette Parks that you see listed there. And that will be put on YouTube very shortly. The second one was the Mary's River Parks String of Pearls. There's all the city parks and natural areas that are along the Mary's River. And you'll see the last one on there was Sawala Point, which we're also doing tonight. But last time we covered the portion excuse me, that was along the Mary's River. And speaking of the Mary's River, thanks to John and Annie Rue, who are living history icons in Corvallis, we were talking about the Mary's River swimming hole behind Avery Park, and somebody had asked, where did that concrete and stone slab come from? And I couldn't answer it. I didn't know. So John and Annie sent me this wonderful picture of the boat launch, which is now where people go to for swimming, and also right at the bend, the boathouse, that carried boats in it. And so this is a great picture, and I appreciate John and Annie Rue for forwarding that to me. So tonight we're covering the Downtown Corvallis Willamette River Parks. I'll name them: Sawala Point, and this is only along the Willamette Valley side. The Riverfront Commemorative Park will be presented to you by Rebecca Landis. North Riverfront Park by Rebecca Landis, and then I'll come back in and close talking about the Orleans Natural Area, which is across the river from downtown and owned by the city. So again, last month, we ended here along the Mary's River, looking at Sawala Point on the left and ODOT land on the right in South Corvallis. But let's look at it as if you were coming down a boat in the middle of summer, as you can tell. And I first want to thank Jim Stratton for many of the pictures that you'll see tonight. I put his name on each one so you don't think the pictures I took were his and say, oh, Jim wasn't that good. So, but no, Jim is a very good photographer, and a joy to work with him. So if you come, this was taken actually a few years ago in the summer, where you could just walk out into the Willamette River upstream, and you can see the road crossing, the bridge crossing the Mary's River on the left side, BMX Park to the left, Sawala Point in the middle, the Willamette Park, Willamette River going down downstream, but going north underneath the 34 bypass, and Orleans Natural Area on the right. Here's another view, just so you get your bearings on where Sawala Point is. And you're going to see different spellings. I even put different spellings on purpose. It's pronounced Sawala, but the Kalapuya and the Grand Ronde spell it S-A-W-A-L-A. The city spells it like it sounds with S-H. So I'm going to use both of them, go interchangeable. I'm not going to be biased in any way. So you can see Sawala Point. You can see the Mary's River and the Willamette River, and with the directions they flow, and what is ODOT land and the BMX Park. So you can see how they're across from each other. A wider view, you can add in the Orleans Natural Area. So you can see that the confluence is mostly controlled by city land. Well, let's look about Sawala Point. You know, most of you have been down there, but I'd like you to imagine it during a 100-year storm. 1964 was the last time we had a 100-year flood. People say 96 was. That is not correct. It was not a 100-year storm. It was a big storm, or two big storms, but 1964 was a big one. And you can see what Jeremy Monroe calls the Mary's River Delta. That's the horizontal part up there, right in here. and how long it is. And this covers a lot of South Corvallis, around 99, and you can see this one, pointing to the lower arrow to the right, that totally inundated is Sawala Point. Here's another view from the north, from the south, looking toward the north. And if you look at the arrow at the top pointing to the right, that is Sawala Point, that is underwater. You can see the Marys River Delta area up and down, but it goes also across. You can see where the the South Co-op is, and you can see where the old motel is that is now 3rd Street Commons, and see all this is completely inundated. And 99W totally inundated. This is the most flood-prone area in Corvallis. I'm showing you this picture. It's over in the PV building on the 2nd floor and in the forestry department at OSU, right off Jefferson and 30th. And I highly recommend you go to the 2nd floor to see these, I think it's 9 figures, and it's honoring the people who survived the Missoula floods. This was commissioned and done all by indigenous artists of the different tribes that were inundated by the Missoula floods. And I say this right after I showed you one of the normal 100-year floods, which is not the Missoula floods that hit here every 50 to 200 to 300 years a long time ago, and impacted the California. But go to see that, it's wonderful. I want to tell you where the word Sawala or Shalwal came from. Shalwal is a California word. It means tarweed, which is a sunflower. And there's the botanical name is Madia. This one is Madia sativa. There's 4 types of tarweed that are native to this area. A lot of people use Madia or Madia elegans also, but there's 4 types. And its seeds are an ancestral and current and critical first food of the Ampinofu California and other tribal cultures. It is, and some people think it's the most important plant food, even more than camas. I want to show you a picture, an old picture of a California woman collecting the seeds using a basket and a form of a broom. Also a photo of Madia sativa, tarweed, shawal by Fred Prahl. That's in his backyard. And the others look different than this, but this is how one of them looks. Oops, I hit the wrong one. I'm having a problem. Okay, there we are. Okay, sorry. Shalwala, not shawal, shawal, but shalawa means little tarweed, or it's a term of endearment. So not only is it a plant, but it's also a person, the last Ampinofu Calipoia, born in the Champinofu or Corvallis area, and was born speaking, and then learned his first language was Ampinofu Calipoia language. And the last one, and he's also the person who is our principal source of information about Ampinofu culture. And by principal, I mean like 95% of what we know came directly from him. His English name or colonist name or settler's name was William Heartless. That's a very interesting story. Well, I'll tell you how to find out about it at the end of my portion here. But it's also a place, Sawala Point. And here's a picture. I think it was taken around 1940 or something, but this is what it looked like from 1910 to 1955. There's a dam across the Marys River. All of this is heavily industrialized as a lumber company. And you can see all of the buttresses against the Marys, against the Willamette River, and it's a similar one up the Marys. And this is just incomprehensible today. Here's another view from the Marys River, shows the dam, and then where South Corvallis starts, and then some of the industrial buildings. this rather blurry picture, but shows you another view of it. I mean, when you look at it, it just looks, it's incomprehensible, really. And the yellow line is the 4th Street Bridge. Another close-up, again, but looks like now. I mean, it's really quite beautiful. And it's the beginning of the Corvallis to the Sea Trail. It's a very comfortable place, with one major exception, which I'll tell you in a second. It's also the first park that we're talking about in this series that has adjacent businesses. There's the wildly popular Wild Yeast Bakery, and then the Pepsi bottling company is not there, but they own the buildings there. And there's 2 other businesses in that location right there. So there's things to do right next to Sawala Point that are commercial. And I showed this in the last webinar. I love these entry points right there to Sawala Point, an eagle and a blue heron. And I tell you that I didn't even notice. I knew something was there, but I never looked up. And the fact those 2 birds are immortalized is a wonderful way of doing it. And this is my favorite place in all of Corvallis. It's the looking over the confluence, and it's so peaceful. It is. If you've never been there, especially when you can be alone or with somebody you love or like, you know, it is so special. And anyway, if you're on the right, you'll see the circle. That's where the confluence is. We're now heading toward the front of the picture, going toward downtown. But when you go up about 50 yards, if you look to the right, there's a little, or look to as you're walking toward the screen here, or to the north, you'll see a little path going down to the right. And let's go down that. If you go down to the end of that, you're literally right at the confluence. And this is underwater much of the winter. It is not right now. And you can see a vestige of the industrial past there. But you can see that it's just a spectacular place to be. That's the view. You can look across to Orleans. I just made that name up, Confluence Bend, across the river there. That's not a real name. But if you look back up the path, now you want to head back up. It's a beautiful little path. And if you look to the right of the path, you're going to see, if you look real close, you'll see something blue in there. And what that is what I like to call ancestral camas. That was not planted by anybody in recent times there. My guess is it goes back, that all goes back to Calapooya days. And this Sawala Point, ironically, probably never had tarweed or shawal there. It was a camas site. The tarweed site was probably across the Marys River. But I'm grateful that the park was named Sawala. And this is looking across the river to Orleans, but you see the bypass. It is a disturbing thing when you're in the park, but you get used to it. And you can see it, you walk under it, heading toward downtown. There's a sign there, a directional sign that helps you out. So it's a little noisy, but it's still a lot to be grateful for there. That's what it looks like under there. And you're looking up at the skate park and a basketball court. This sign that you cannot read tells you all the things you're not allowed to do there, which I always find amusing. And of course, everybody does those things. If you look toward the Willamette River, there's a nice bench there, and you can look from underneath. It's a kind of an odd place, but you look over to Orleans, and the difference between our modern transportation system in a natural environment is stark. Now I'm going to be closing out here by just coming up to where Rebecca is going to take over. And you can see that in the red circle, there's a little display there. And that display says where the Marys River joins the Willamette. And so Sawala Point was previously called Marys River Flat. That was the name of that area. and it's flat. It flooded, and then it became industrial. And there's a lot on this display. Sometimes you might have to read it, come back a few times, but it has so much good information on it and wonderful photos. I highly recommend you look at it the next time you're down there. Now, speaking of Mary's River Flat or Sawala, two things are coming up I really want you to know about. One is on Saturday, August 23rd, we're starting with the OSU Indigenous Studies Program, the Confederated Tribes of the Grand Ronde, the Tarweed Folk School, Wild Yeast Bakery, and there may be a few other co-sponsors. The main sponsor is the Corvallis Sustainability Coalition, but we're celebrating Shawwal, the plant, the person, and the place. And this is just a short, this isn't a true festival the first year. It's part of a gentle rollout. And we'll have presentations, we'll have tours, and we're going to have some wonderful demonstrations related to tarweed. So stay tuned. That's all I'm going to tell you now, but put that date down and look forward to this 1 to 4 on the 23rd. The other thing I want you to look forward to is the Corvallis Sustainability Coalition in coordination with the OSU Indigenous Studies Program is starting a fund to have an Indigenous canoe handmade by a member of the Confederated Tribes of the Grand Ronde. And it'll be to develop the Indigenous canoe family culture here on the Willamette and Marys River in Champeenapoo in Corvallis. This will change everything to bring Indigenous culture back to the river. And I can't tell you how excited I am about this. You'll be hearing more about it. We have to raise a significant amount of money, and if you're so inclined, contact me. So now I'm finally going to hand it over to the wonderful Rebecca Landis, who's the president of Preservation Works. She's also one of the, if not the founder, I should have asked her this. I always assumed she was the founder, and always been the manager of the Corvallis Farmers Market. And it's one of the best things that Corvallis has, and Rebecca is totally responsible for it. And also you'll see a lot of Jim Stratton's photos in her presentation. So thank you. I'm going to sign off and take it away, Rebecca.
Okay, so I am going to get my, looks like I need to back off from what I'm doing here. Okay, sorry. All right, I think this is mine. Dave and I overlapped our content, so it fooled me for a moment there. Oops, I've done the wrong thing, I think. You guys seeing the green line problem? Sorry.
We're not seeing your screen just yet.
Yeah, you haven't shared yet, so we only see you.
I haven't shared yet. All right.
We're watching you panic.
Okay. I'm going to do it the right way this time. Okay, that isn't yet what we're looking for. Oh, dang.
That's not what we want. We don't want to see that.
I know. I'm just trying to get things out of my way so I can see things.
So you want to do full screen?
Yeah. Well, first I have to do. First I have to get it on. No, I guess that's not the right order.
No, that was not bad.
No, it's bad. It's bad.
Okay.
Okay. I'm going to stop sharing. Sorry, folks. We did this earlier, and the order is what's the problem. I can't seem to get it the right order. First I have to share, and then I have to fix it. I guess I can't see the controls I need.
They're right at the bottom.
All right, yeah. I'm gonna do entire screen and hope that I can then fix the Yes, all right, now I've got it. All right, we're there. All right, so to address Dave's comment, I'm not quite the founder. My husband, Larry Landis, and I arrived in 1991 here, and people had been organizing what you now know as the Saturday Farmers Market for a few months before we got here. There were 2 existing markets before that. A month after we got here, Larry volunteered us to work on this, though. And I actually began managing the markets in 1991. There was a guy named Ron Spiso, and we might still have a tribute to him at the bottom of our webpage. Not sure which is locallygrown.org. So my husband, Larry Landis, is the retired director of Special Collections, Archives, and Research Center at OSU, which has the lovely name of SCARC. And he is a volunteer for the Benton County Historical Society, which runs the museums in Philomath and Corvallis. And he's currently serving as the society's board president. And so you can imagine, I got a lot of help snagging all the historic photos that you're going to see. Most of the photos are from the Benton County Historical Society. There's a couple that are from OSU via Oregon Digital, and there is one from the Library of Congress. So I hope that you'll come, if nothing else, that you'll come away with kind of a picture of how the Riverfront Commemorative Park is kind of a recent layer of history that includes a very robust industrial past, just like what Dave showed you, but different industry. And that there are recurring themes you'll see of multiple modes of transportation, commerce in food, and people living in and even on the river. Okay, and I want to say, prepare your brain because we're going to swerve wildly in time. We're going to, like all these string of pearls things, we're going to be working gradually north. But as far as what decade or century we're in, that might veer wildly. Okay, I think I'm ready to move along here. This, you should be seeing the 1951 Marysville Plat, which is the initial town of Marysville, which became Corvallis. And as you see, Willamette River is at the bottom of it. So everything was oriented to the river. Another key document, this is the one Library of Congress document, is the Sanborn insurance maps, which shows you where buildings were at a given point in time. So just for reference, and we'll come back to this later, this block here, can you see my cursor? Can you?
Yes.
Okay. So this block here from Monroe to Jackson, that's what you might recognize as the largest block of the farmers market. And then we go this other block to the north of it, we go halfway up there, and then there's the chaos of the ODOT construction. And the farmers market also goes up a half a block, no, actually an entire block from 1st to 2nd Street on Monroe Avenue. But we're not going to talk about that because that is not Riverfront Commemorative Park. So this is just to get oriented. Okay, here's one of the earliest images of the area we're talking about. I wouldn't take this as any sort of literal gospel truth. It's a lithograph, but it's from statehood time. And here is an aerial that I think is from the Benton County Historical Collection that shows some of what Dave was showing you, but not in as much detail. But you can see the industrial nature of this area down here. And you can also see that there isn't a lot of nature up here at this point in 1949. There are trees along the riverbank, but there's this big naked area here right before the Van Buren Bridge, but I'll tell you why. Here are some shots from the turn of the last century. There was a water tower that the city purchased, I think, from a private owner, if I recall correctly, but there was a water tower at First and Adams that is the vantage point for this shot of the river and also for this shot of some of the early buildings. We don't have a good time frame on this. We don't have a very precise time frame on this photo, but it shows a pattern I want you to see, which is that there's industrial stuff right on the river, and there might be some residential stuff, although I guess there's not a very good view of it here. But you will see that there's some residential on the east side, excuse me, on the west side. The east side is the river. Okay, oops, want to go back to that. I, I don't, I don't have too many words for you, but this is just a little bit of a time frame of the development of the park. In the 1950s, this park was not going to be a park. It was going to be a bypass for Highway 99, and land was acquired in that time. By the late 60s, though, citizens of Corvallis were having none of that. They were starting to do things as volunteers to make it look like a park. And then in the 70s, we start to have more indicia of a real park with signs, bike paths, benches, more features. In the farmers market that you see on Saturday actually started a year before 92. 91, it was on Madison Avenue. And there was a little bit of a dust up about whether we were taking up someone's valuable parking. And the parks director at the time, Rennie Moyer, seized on this and said, well, let's put them in one of the parking lots on the riverfront. And I think he already had the vision that it would be a park. And in 93, it was actually renamed. I think it was probably a park before that. It was renamed Riverfront Commemorative Park, its current name at that time in 1993. And then there was a bond election for both the park and a combined sewer overflow project that they did at the same time. This being Corvallis, citizens had a different view on how that should take place. And another plan was put forward, and that election did not succeed. However, some of the ideas of the folks that were not happy with the original plan were did happen. And I'm going to not get into a lot of that stuff because there are probably people who are on both sides of that on this talk right now, and we don't want to go back 20 years and 25 years in time and focus on that. The farmers market had been waiting to come back to the site, and we did so in 2003, and we've been back there ever since. Okay, so here's what things looked like when the park improvements were just getting started. There was finally a way to get through there on a bike. Here's the sign, and you can see the river here. Again, middle 60s, bicentennial fervor probably involved. And this shot by Jim Stratton is right where, if you know where Mater Engineering is, that's this little bit of red right here. And this, so whoops, I'm sorry. I'm going to have to be more careful about what I do with my cursor now. Okay, so we're walking north on, and we're south of Western Boulevard at this time. Okay, I'm going the wrong way. All right, so here again, you can see that Orleans is across the river, and we're looking at the Willamette. Jim has helpfully provided pictures of all the little unofficial trails, including ones that he's labeled secret, or maybe Dave has done that. So this is not an official plaza, but it's just an example of some of the side places you can stop to rest and enjoy the river. Here's Mater that we were talking about. I believe that building's from 1981. But here's how Mater started, at least how I believe it started, as a machine shop. And this is in the same area. I do not know what all those pipes are for. Also, the Mater area, I'm including this just to show you that rail transportation was a part of what was going on in this industrial area. And jumping way ahead, 2006, suddenly we have our first multi-story building in the ballpark of 6 or 7 stories. And Marv Gloge, the photographer here, was a city planner or a county planner in Lynn County. And I served with him on the board of the Benton County Historical Society around the time that we were acquiring the land that is now the museum in Corvallis. And this is what the riverfront looks like today. Excuse me, the Renaissance on the riverfront. It's residential, and there's some office space, and there's restaurants in it. And so that it's a big change going from what you saw earlier, industrial, to high-level residential. And yes, it was controversial because of its height. Okay, so in the same area here, more gathering areas. And there are places that you can see the river. There are places that it's harder to see the river. But there are always fences because people would not like the experience if they were to go down the bank where it is steeper. Okay, one of the really wonderful things that has happened in the park, Dave has already shown you one of these ceramic signs here, is that we have these wonderful history signs that are done by a number of people, including Patricia Benner and Dave Livingston. I don't know who did the one that Dave showed. This is Patricia Benner's, and it tells the story of how the river nearly left Corvallis high and dry. And you're going to need to go to about Washington Avenue to see this one. It's near the Renaissance Building. And I've got some more pictures of it, but you can, they'll show you in detail what the river was doing, the changes it was making, and then here what the Corps of Engineers was thinking about doing. And of course, the river bats last. I'll just say that much. You should spend some time with that sign and the others. This, I want to point out that we don't have a lot of natural native plant, but we have life in the Riverfront Park, but we have a lot of very nice landscaping that that is in, you know, I think in good taste for a park of this nature. This building here, this is the Marriott. This is where Copeland Lumber was, and probably many of you, if you've lived here for a while, remember the Copeland Lumber Yard. This property was acquired by the Benton County Historical Society, and they with the intent that they would sell off this piece to help fund the construction that they needed to house the Horner collection that they got from OSU, among things. And so this entire pretty much this block is taken up by the Marriott, and it also is many stories tall, but I think it's got setbacks. So I'm not going to name a number and be wrong. But it's a big change in the environment in the last few years. Another place where you can stop and actually see the river. So this is the back of the Old World Center. It's just north of Adams, and the parking lot in the front is belongs to the post office. It's not a general parking lot. This is the historic post office, which is at Jefferson, and we're seeing the back side of it that is closest to the Riverfront Park. Okay, now we're going to get into some historic photos here. This is the steamer Altona, and these steamers were both passenger vessels and shipping vessels. And I want to just say now there's probably more than one Cawthorn warehouse in this presentation. This is, I believe, between Jefferson and Madison off the top of my head. And the little building in the middle, I'm going to have to do a little more research on that, but it seems to me that that's going to be another food-related building that I'm going to want to do some research on. Oregon Railroad and Navigation Company, that would have been about passenger stuff. So we're going to be on the east side of the of First Street or Water Avenue for a while here, because all of the industrial stuff that the park replaced was mostly on the east side. So about in 1905, we had this central planing mill facility, and that door that's shown there, that's very similar to the door on the house I'm sitting in right now. I live in an 1890 farmhouse, and that door could have come from there. In fact, it probably did. If they were, or whatever planing mill was there in 1890, if not that one. So there was a fire. You'll see that as a recurring theme too. They were rebuilding it in 1911, and somebody happened to get this nice shot of that. A later iteration of the business was called Buxton's, and I believe I have some kind of a coaster that Buxton's made as a promotional material. And Buxton's was still around in 1947. I haven't researched how late Buxton's existed, but this again is still on the east side, the park side. Also on the park's side, in what is now the park, we had Corvallis Creamery. And note the price of the butterfat, because that's going to change in the next slide here. This is a postcard. And then a little bit later, circa 1917, the price is up quite a bit. And we have another difference. You see there's the rail car there, and you see there are cars there. I'm going to go backwards. There's a horse and a wagon. So there's a lot of transportation mode changes. There's also a water tower there that I think that's in both of them. Yes, it's present in both of them. Okay, moving forward, still on the east side, the creamery is now called Meadowland, and you can see that they have a fleet of these spiffy vehicles here, and it's about 1930. And at some point they acquire or build property over. We've moved over now to the west side, the not park side, and there is a fire, but it does not destroy this building because it was there until a few weeks ago. Here it is again in 1975, and we want to stop here and look at what's going on with the park side here. You can see there's some gravel parking. You can see that there's a little bit of attempt at landscaping here in the bottom of the photo, and there's some kind of a parking block here, and there's gravel over here near the building too. So it's not the polished look of the riverfront that we see today, but people had started trying to do something by this point and make it more of a people place. Okay. So that's 1975, and here we are at this corner here. This is Madison, and here is what it looked like in 1983 on the south end of the building, and it also looked pretty much like this until a few weeks ago. This is all gone now. But you can see that there aren't any curbs or sidewalks or anything like this. And yes, we're still on the west side here. So this building has been torn down mostly. This part here, we're looking from the north at the building, the part of the building that you might recognize as the Fox and Firkin or the Flattail restaurant and brewery. That is still there, at least as of this morning, but I'm not certain how far they got in tearing it down today. So again, this is 1983, and there was a cultural resources survey that year, and that's why you're going to see a ton of photos from 1983. Okay, so back to nature for a moment here. We need a visual palette cleanser here provided by Jim. Here's what's going on now where that Meadowland warehouse is. They're taking it down for the Gordon Hotel and Residences. And I'm not sure, we'll see what they've reclaimed. I want you guys to know that up here, these bricks up here, they say Corvallis on them. They're hollow bricks. And I don't know whether they're saving them or not, but they are part of our history. Here we are at the intersection of First and Madison, and we can now talk about some park features here. These black and white columns are artwork to represent steamships in some way, and also the natural world. We're calling it the Kingfisher's Gateway because this one the birds on it are to represent kingfishers. And here we are at Madison. So moving along, here's a better look at the kingfishers, which is way better than you could see on your own unless you took a picture and zoomed. This is one of the three plazas. This one is at Madison. They can see a directional sign like Dave noted further south. This particular plaza is called the Howland Plaza for Jim and Ruth Howland, who there's also an art exhibit that is dedicated to them at the Arts Center. And this is what the plaza looks like. A little bit of humor here. I think that the artwork myself, I think that that's part of the joke too. It's supposed to look like a nut, I think. Again, we have some of these great historic signs that you should come back and look at. This one here happens, I think this is actually the Dixon part of the plat that you can look at. And I believe this is one of Dave Livingston's, and independently, I tried not to look at this, but I think I independently chose some of the same photos that he did. So that's worth a read. And then I think this is also David Livingston's sign. Patricia's on this call, so I don't want to misstate if she did something, but she did all of those river signs I showed you earlier. This is a pretty famous photo. If you've seen any historic photos of a steamboat, you've seen this one in Corvallis. So that's why I did choose a different one. And that's where you can learn about how people got around and how material got around in that era. Here is the park again, and it features some not at all natural areas, but some green spaces that have been created for gathering places. And this one here is from Madison to Monroe Avenue. It's the farmer's market is not using it, but there's another market now that is, whoops, wrong direction again. Before we get to markets, this building here, which I mistakenly had thought was a 1930s building, is actually from 1941. And it has an ice cream place in it, which I think is a wonderful historical connection to the creamery. And plus, I like ice cream. And after that, it was two different laundries. And that's how I encountered the building, as the overall laundry bin building. The market used to store stuff in parts of it while it was under, well, parts of it that were not rented to businesses. There have been restaurants, and this has got it's got the Sugar Jay's ice cream, Brass Monkey, and Microtech in it at this time. Okay, this building here, you might not know what it's called, but Taco Vino, Beer Library, and a bar and Sada's sushi is in the basement, and there was a wine store in there before COVID. This is called the Water Street Market now, but it was called the Cooperative Managers Association. And starting, I think, in the mid-1920s, it was a place where fraternities and sororities on campus were able to acquire the food for their members who lived in the houses. And it was renovated in, I'm going to say 2006, 2008 ballpark. That's only approximate, but it is today a very vital part of the riverfront, and it was an important thing in its day as cooperative managers too. Oops, back again the wrong way. This is a new thing. The Artisan Fair has been in a gravel lot at First and Monroe. I do not run it, but I also wanted to use this picture to show you that the sidewalk is diverging into sidewalk and a multimodal path here. And the multimodal path is 12 feet wide, and it's right near the river. And it's a great way both to get around and to look at our river. So this is the corner of First and Monroe. The Artisan Fair is here on the left. On the right is the area, I've been calling it the political area, but I'm going to try to call it the free speech area now. And then the Water Street Market's there in front of you. And the farmers market does not control the free speech or political area. We don't choose what's there. And so if you don't like what's being said there, it is not my fault. Okay, moving forward here, this is we're on the Monroe Plaza, and there's a lot of art here. These otters are part of that. I would say it's not even conservatively that there's Corvallis way achieved its 1% for art on the riverfront. They put a lot of art into this park. There's a view of the river. Another view of the site of the former cooperative managers, the Water Street Market. And here's what it looked at. We're looking from the south to the north. This is what it looked like in the 50s or the 60s. Okay, we're back in the park now. We're looking at an early farmers, May farmers market this year in the Water Street Market, and that's the Julian Apartments in the background. And we're in this large area here that's just grass. And it's a place that people can have picnics and hang out and look at all the crazy stuff going on in the market. Here's something interesting that happened in last July. We had an extended period of heat, and a pin oak tree that was otherwise healthy before this split in 3 parts on the morning of a Wednesday market. And unfortunately, this is what we get. This is what we have now. I forget what this is, but it's going to be a long time before whatever it is going to be anywhere near as majestic as that wonderful pin oak was. Okay, this is a close-up of a Sanborn map that we were looking at earlier, and I just want to show you that the main this main grassy area of the park, and this is what I call the main block of the market. This is the Benton County Flouring Mill, and so a food related business that ships. And then across, this is, I believe this is, I'm sorry, must be Jackson. And this is then another Cawthorn warehouse, and it's a grain warehouse, again, food. So the industry of the valley was very food related, and the river was the means of getting stuff around. And so that's what was going on in the park, in what became the park for a long time. And you can see even then they were a little ambiguous. Is it first or is it water? It's both. Okay. This is what happened with the Benton County Flouring Mill, and why there's that big naked expanse on one of the earlier images I showed you. And that occurred in 1943. This is, again, a spring market not that long ago. And Jim has put an arrow here so you can orient yourself and see that play structure. That's a fairly recent addition. And I have to admit, when I see 2-year-olds climbing to the top of that, it kind of gives me heart failure. But they have a nice soft surface, and no 2-year-olds have been harmed, as far as I know. Okay, so again, in this block, we now have residential. We probably had residential before, but it didn't look like this. Also, there's a restaurant, Murphy's, and there's currently a ceramic firing business where you can go in and paint something and have it fired. And another look at the river here. I want to point out that all through the Riverfront Park, there are these fairly subtle fences so that nobody goes down the very steep bank. The Hellenberg Plaza is the name for the Jackson Plaza. And it's very significant. It's probably the most significant of the plazas. I really like this, the special fence they put in, a really decorative one for this. And the fountain is a mid-19th century depiction of the river as it was at that time. And I think it has town names in it, but you can't see that level of detail when it's going. I believe that Patricia Benner was responsible for choosing the map and making sure that that was well executed. And but on an average summer day, the kids aren't necessarily looking at that, but maybe a little something will soak in while they're having fun. I certainly enjoy both aspects of it. Yeah, here's a shot where you can actually see one of the tributaries here. All right, and here is a view of what the market looks like from looking east on Jackson to the Jackson or Hellenberg Plaza. If you've been here a while, you probably think of this building as Big River, but I'm here to tell you that it was a bus station before that. And it's currently the Oddbird Cafe, and the building, the part of the building just to the west that's brown, that is a really lovely Syrian restaurant that you should try. And so we've got Oddbird, and then another Sanborn. Sorry, I have to have a Sanborn every now and again. So this is now Van Buren. The break between these two blocks. I believe this is Van Buren, and this is the Corvallis Electric Power and Light. And this is a house, which is sort of violating the rule that we didn't have residential on the riverside that much, but we had that one house. And you can see while we're here, I think these are all, see that where it says D? I think these are all dwellings here, D for dwelling. Okay. So here's what the riverbank looked like at a particular point. I'm sorry, I didn't put on the slide when this is, but you can see the Hotel Julian here. So that's on Monroe. And look at all these buildings that are coming down the bank here. They're covered up, but you can see that the riverbank was anything but natural at this time. It was part of this industrial usage, even though there's a lot of vegetation there. And you can see, look at all the evidence of at least there had been wharves there. Okay, so wow, look at all this change. After the property has been acquired to build the bypass, suddenly the bank is awfully naked. That's kind of suspicious, like they didn't think there would be a need for all that vegetation there, or that they didn't want it to be there. But I don't know the exact story of how it came to go away, but you can kind of see where you are by the courthouse, and this is the Benton Hotel. And that is okay. Back to the present. Is your brain hurting yet? Okay, this is, again, we're at the this is the building that's at the corner of First and Jackson. And Jim apparently appreciates the culinary offerings here, because he noted all of the bakeries. Alpine Bakery has been there. By the way, Big River opened in 1995. Alpine had been in other places, including Alpine, but it opened here in this little alcove in 1995. Bodhi Bistro is where the Mongolian Grill restaurant was. Okay, and then there's the Kinetic Bagel Institute. This building in 1983 was selling foreign car parts. And I must say, with all the white paint, it does, I like this look better than this. So here we are in the area now that is partly torn up by the Van Buren Bridge project. And here's another probably 1983 shot. So this parking lot still exists here. It's got a lot of nice plantings in it now, so it doesn't look like so car oriented, and this area here is the nice patio for boating now. So it all looks a lot nicer. All right, this is the condition of things right now. ODOT's work area has closed the path, the multi-use path for now. And the road itself at this moment is also closed, and that's making for interesting times in our lives, those of us that live and work there. So I'm moving now north of Van Buren, north of the bridge. And this is what I showed you on the Sanborn map here. Again, we're on the riverside. This is the Corvallis Power and Light, Electric Power and Light building. And this is the house, the one house on the west side of what is now parkland. And we're going to see that here. We're going to see it from the river. Here is a ferry, and we're looking west, of course, because we're looking at Corvallis side. And this building on the left is the Power and Light building, I believe, and the and this house here is the house that is shown in the other photo in the Sanborn. There are many pictures of ferries, and so I just picked my favorite, but there are many great ferry photos to be seen. Okay, well, you had to get there somehow. Here's the ramp to get you there. And the Benton County Historical Society is dating this around in the ballpark of 1905, and check out the woman's dress here. So I think they're probably pretty close there. I was told before I started this research that there were speedboats, and lo and behold, there is a photo of a photo. It's very kind of artsy looking photo, so I don't know if it's actually a postcard. So here's and here's another one of those steamers and some of the warehouses here. More modern photo. I'm sorry, I don't have the information on this, but this is the Van Buren Bridge. You know that it's after 1964 because there's the Harrison Bridge right behind the Van Buren Bridge. And here is a picture of the Van Buren Bridge open for dredging. I believe the date on that is about 1960. And I had previously thought there was no photo after 1950 something, but here it is. The Van Buren Bridge was capable of opening. That would be a webinar in of itself that we can't go into now, but the main reason it would open was for dredging, which doesn't occur anymore. All right, here's an aerial from the Benton County. No, this one's from the Oregon Digital from OSU's collections, showing the North Riverfront area, starting with the Van Buren Bridge. And there is no Harrison Bridge at this point here. It's just the Van Buren. I apologize for the quality of this, but I thought it still would be useful to see the vegetation or lack thereof. If you look at this photo, this is that naked place where the Benton Flouring Mill burned down. Right here, that's the block between Monroe and Jackson, and then Van Buren here. And this is in 1952. Okay, the Van Buren Bridge is a baby here. This is brand new Van Buren entry to the Van Buren Bridge. And this is the Benton County Growers Association, and we're on the park side here. And this is where local farmers brought their food to be canned. And I'm not certain exactly where this is, but it shows that we had sidewalks that were actually boardwalks. And I believe this is I believe we're on the west side of the street, and the river is over on the left side. And this guy is pruning some kind of a tree. But moving back to probably 1983 again, this is what the area just north of Van Buren looked like. there was a gravel parking lot, and then that's the motel that is probably today the roadway, I'm going to say, and is still there. So a not very park-like looking situation there. And but that's, and then again, there's a lot of not very park-like vistas, excuse me, here in 1975 around the bridges that was just essentially a parking lot. And now we're gonna move to the North Riverfront Park. And I want to say I'm not as conversant in every square inch of this area as I might be with the main Riverfront Park, but I'm aware that it was called Aquathusiast, or parts of it were called Aquathusiast Park. And colloquially, we call it, parts of it, Michael's Landing too, which is on the slide, as a matter of fact. Okay, so I had to include the OSU crew from 1935, and that shows you a lot. This is probably my best photo showing how much residential there was, in this case, in the north part on both sides of Water Avenue. So you're looking from the Orleans side here. I don't believe this, I spent a lot of time on this. I don't think this is the same house that we were looking at before. It's just from the same rough period. Okay, I promised that I was going to show you a place where people could live on the river. There are lots of houseboat photos. This one happens to be on dry land at the moment, but I chose it because there's also a dredger in the photo. Lots of people lived on the river. I think there was a lot of it going on right after World War II, because we had a really phenomenal housing shortage here. Sound familiar? And also, I think it may have been a good place to live if you were someone for whom landlords might refuse you. There was a Black man who was a shoe shine worker in one of the Corvallis hotels, and the picture of him at work says that he lived in a houseboat. And I'm willing to bet it's because he had trouble finding lodgings. Okay, modern photo under the Harrison Bridge. It's pretty noisy under there, but it's peaceful to look at the photo. Here's where the two bridges, we're looking from the Corvallis side and seeing them converge. What you're looking at there is the Detour Bridge. Over on the right, you're looking at the Detour Bridge and then the new bridge under construction. Here's another one of those sort of unofficial ways to get a better look at the river. The multi-use path is to your left. Here we are still on the unofficial trail. And there is the OSU crew dock, which is north of the Van Buren Bridge. This is the area that I have called Michael's Landing, rightly or wrongly, for some time. And here's what it looked like I'll have to pass on saying, well, the cars are, I believe it's 1955. Yeah, the cars tell it all, really. So these are all people who are parked and using this area as a boat launch. The important thing to know about this area, as whether it's in the park era or not, is that it's always been a place where people can reach the river more easily, because you can see we don't have the high bank here. When you get this far north, the bank isn't high. Okay, this building is probably worth a webinar in and of itself. If you lived here in 1982, you'll know that it was moved here in that year, or you'll know that it was moved here approximately then. It was a train depot, and the city had been using it for a police department and kind of, probably, when I say jail facility, I mean like a temporary lockup. People would go to the county jail after that. And it was moved here, and I believe it was in the same orientation that you see here. And it was on 6th Street next to the other little piece of railroad depot that is still there at this point. And that's called the Wells Fargo building. But this This piece became the restaurant called Michael's Landing, and it is now the old Spaghetti Warehouse. And as you can see, it had an area built onto it so that to facilitate dining and seeing the river. Okay, another secret trail. It's not secret now, it's in a webinar. And now some open views of the Willamette. And it's not just boat launch. There's some fishery going on. And it's a frequent place to see ducks. And we are at the end here. And before I let Dave take over, I just want to make sure that I have said the things that I need to say here. I'm gonna, like Dave, who is doing some shameless promotion, I'm gonna do some shameless promotion for the market. And I just want to say that we consider ourselves a riverfront pioneer, at least in the modern era. When we moved to the riverfront parking lots that later became the park was not a place that people came to have a lovely dinner on a Friday night or a Thursday night or any night. It was not a pretty looking place at all. And farmers markets can serve the purpose of bringing people to a place and having eyes on the street and making it viewed as a more desirable place. And that did happen as we got some restaurants before, a few restaurants beforehand, and a lot more after the park was created in its full modern form. And I think that I'm probably ready to turn it over, and anything else can be questions. So I'm going to hit escape and stop share. How's that?
Good. Thank you so much, Rebecca. You're a storehouse of information, and so is Larry. And and so appreciate you and Larry and Jim Stratton for all that. Let's move on and look at across the river. And I'm going to sort of speed through this. Well, let's see. There it is, right there. The Orleans is right across. You can see New Morning Bakery is, and so looking straight across, you see Orleans natural area, bordered on the outside by the 34 bypass, and you'll see a little trail going inside the forest there. And this outlines the riparian area. That means the area, a treed area, along highly vegetated area along this river, which is critically important to the hydrology and ecology of the river. And then on the right of the red area, you see a meadow area, and part of it's green and part of it's brown and just been tilled. So then you see the bypass on the right. Again, I want to show you the picture I showed you at the beginning with some Sawala Point. Orleans is on the right. A little closer, you can see it. This shows you the area near 34, who owns it. So if you come across the Van Buren Street Bridge, the city owns the first part. ODOT owns the next 3 sections and another one down here, and the city owns all the rest in here. And if you come across here, well, once they're finished with construction, there's something called the Suzanne Wilkins Trail. It comes around here and under, and it connects you to the bike trail on the other side. This is the access that you will be taking once the bridge is completed. Again, I want to show you that this area where it says floodway is the Orleans. It is not just floodplain. The river flows through it at river speed. So it's not just like a gentle floodplain. It is a floodway, highly dangerous and deep, and crosses 34. and people had been stranded in their cars there. In 2019, I think was the last time it flooded. But before that, somewhere around 2012, I think it was, it flooded twice in 1 year. So this again is just coming across the Van Buren Street Bridge, and Orleans is to the right. Just show you different maps. 1852 shows you in the oval, nobody was living there. There are a couple of areas that had been sectioned out, whereas on the lower left of that, on the west side, you can see Marysville, which was the first name of, was the first European name of Corvallis. Seeing that same picture in 1860, remember, 1852, now 1860, all of a sudden, boom, it's all sectioned out with ownership. And if you look, you'll see names that are recognizable, such as Mulkey, and a lower part, Rob Netz, who most of you know that name. And then in 1862, there's beginnings of some structures. You can't really see them too much in this right now, but they're beginning. Well, there were structures already because the flood was in 1861 and wiped them out. So by the time this was taken, there were no structures left because there was a huge flood. It had to be bigger than a 100-year flood. But by 1880 to 1895, there were some structures back again over there, here, right by where the ferry lands, and this is near the bridge, and then way back in here, you see some structures. So and these are all to manage farms. And of course, there's one of the classic photos of the ferry. Here's a sketch. Remember, we talked earlier about we almost lost the river to Corvallis. It was coming up this way, and it was a slough, that was our washout, and it was starting to just cut it right off. And this is Orleans right here, where it says washout and gravel wash and overflowed lands and all kinds of words like that. So this is Orleans, and so Corvallis would have been a long way away from the river if the federal government hadn't come in and done some, from a hydrological things, dastardly things, but it was good culturally. In 1921, there was 3 to 5 houses, depending on how you count them, there, right near 34, and the rest was farmland. And then in 39, you can see some of those houses there, and you can see the farmland. All of this is Orleans right in here. So you can see just a few trees along the edge and that. And then 1940, you can see it again, same thing, another view. Up here is Sawala Point. Here's all the warehouses and Rebecca was talking about. Here's an illustration of the new Van Buren Avenue Bridge when it's completed. This is current Harrison Bridge. This is the new Van Buren Street Bridge when it's completed. And here is a Susan B. Wilkins bike path coming along. And notice there's a lot of vegetation in here. That it is true, that's currently there. But because there's no official access to Orleans right now, Jim, the photographer, and I couldn't get over there. So this is going to be real fast. We don't have pictures. We thought we could get over there, and then we couldn't. So this is an old photo of the Suzanne Wilkins Way. She passed away at a very young age, and it was she was hit by a car. And on 34, then people said, "Oh, we have to have some kind of a bike path," and so that tragedy brought about something good. But what I want to show you is once that is open, there's going to be a lot of efforts to really regenerate this area for people to walk across this bridge, and it'll be a big walkway, pedestrian and bikeway, and some artwork on the bridge. And you can come down the Susan B. Wilkins Trail, and you can walk all the way down. There's an old country road coming all the way down to 34. And if you want, you can cross over to into the Allenburg area and up in here. Oops. So but what I like to do is I like to walk down this way, turn around, come back, and then there's a little unofficial trail that goes along the river. And that's what I recommend. And they call it Southeast Roach Lane, actually, even though it's a country road with no buildings on it. This gives you an area. There's places you can look across, see where the Water Market House building is with Taco Vino and the beer library and Sada's and Kingfish Bar. And then you can, from another viewpoint, you'll see where New Morning Bakery is. And so from this highly wooded area, you're looking over toward the more commercialized section. And that was Howland Plaza. You can see right here. And then lower, you can see across to the post office and Old World Deli. And then a little bit lower on Roach Lane, you can look right over and see the courtyard. You can really get a handle on there. And then going down even further, Western Avenue and all this area in here where, there's a lot of activity. And until you get to the overpass. And then you can go under if you want, or it's in the summer, not the winter, not the spring, but in the summer, you can actually go down to the river there. It's a little precarious, and I'm not taking any responsibility for anybody going there. Down here is Sawala Point. And so you have three choices when you get to under the overpass or bypass. You can go turn around. You can go a slightly dangerous area down to the river, and then or go over to Berg natural area. Here's what it looks like from Orleans when you're under that, and you can see over to where the bench is right here that we showed you at Sawala Point, and back here is the skate park. It's a kind of an odd place, but you only want to go down to the river in the summer. Again, I'll say that again. Here we are. Jim and I are down in the river. I forgot to put his name on this photo, or the previous one. So Jim Stratton's name should be on all these photos now. And he took these a few years ago. You see there's a sandbar here. People go down there and love it. And so there it is. So option 2 is going over to Berg, and you can hike up in here and around. But there is private property. You have to really obey where you are. Don't go on private property. Took us 70 people over on a hike just before the bridge work started, and took them to Berg Park, and then we hiked back up. You can go up Roach Lane, and right at the 90-degree bend is where you can take off into the Riverside unofficial trail, but that will have to be cleared because there's been no maintenance of it for the last 2 or 3 years. So it'll be highly overgrown and probably poison oak and Armenian blackberry. So don't go there now. And then you can walk. This is a wonderful walk right along the river. But again, it needs to be maintained first and cut back until you come back. And then there's a way to get back to Roach Lane. And all of a sudden you're back to the Susan B. Wilkes. And you can walk back across the river. And there's a picture of a bunch of us, at the tail end of 70 people walking up along the river. Very different than walking along on the other side. So I'm going to stop sharing now. And I wish we had pictures, but we weren't able to take them. But that'll be after the bridge is done and the place is maintained. We'll do something on that. So it is now 8:25. We have 5 minutes for questions, Bonnie. So go for it. Any questions?
Sure. Well, so far, no questions. So maybe that's a good thing considering our short time. But I want to remind folks that you do have a chance to submit questions. Now would be a good time. We can try to answer some of those before we wrap up at 8:30. I'll give it a minute, see if any come in. It was really cool to see all of those historic photos and try to like
Mhm.
imagine those areas
Yeah,
compared to now. It was really interesting. So thanks for all that work. I'm sure that was a lot of work pulling all those photos out. So thank you
yeah.
both. Thank you, Rebecca. You had so many.
I was fortunate in that because my husband is a volunteer at the museum, I was able to get some that are not readily available. I think they probably will become available soon because uh, having used them and benefited from them, we'll try to get those public as soon as possible.
Hey, we have some questions now.
We do, yay. Why is it called Orleans, Orleans Natural Area?
Why don't you take that, Rebecca?
Well, there was a town of not New Orleans, of Orleans, and as Dave pointed out, it was not a place that had permanence to it because people realized that it was too low and too wet to be a town, and that that's the size of it. It's not, it never made it as a town. There are several other places along the Willamette River like that where people tried to start commerce. I believe one of them, I lived near the airport in an 1890 farmhouse, and across the river from me is something called the Boonville Slough. Well, until 1875, that was a main branch of the river, and there was a town called Boonville. There's not a town called Boonville anymore, and there's others.
Okay. What you got
Thanks.
next?
And Stephanie asks, where will replays be available? I'm assuming she means the recording. It will be added to the library's YouTube channel in a few weeks once we subtitle it. It will also be emailed to everyone who registered for this event, so even if they didn't attend. And if you are one of those folks who receives that link, you're welcome to forward that to anyone so they can watch right away and don't have to wait to see it on YouTube. So hopefully that helps there. Michael asks, what year were steamboats stopped on the Willamette and what stopped them?
I wish Larry were here because he could probably answer this question more readily than I can, but I would suspect that it was a confluence of factors. Um, steamboats could not always get all the way this far on the river. I think they were sometimes affected by low water, and railroads came. The railroad was slow in coming to this side of the valley, but when it did, I think a commercial and cultural factor that probably led to that result.
Great. Mary asks, are there many homeless encampments in Orleans and Sawala Point? Sawala Point?
I'll take that one. Yes, there have been. It's not a kind of place to let people live. Um, we haven't solved the problem of where people should live, but those two places are not kind to the humans who are living there. It's a rough place. Um, I won't go into the details, but a lot has happened there that are dangerous. The city has taken care of that for the most part. The problem is nobody's coming up with a good solution as where people should go. That said, it still is extremely inhumane to let people live in Orleans and on Sawala Point and in Pioneer Park. And so we have to find a solution, and it's getting harder and harder as we speak to find that solution.
Thanks, Dave. Stephanie asks, what happened to the platform at Howland Plaza?
Howland Plaza is at Madison, and I believe that some of the structures that were there were built in the 80s, and I don't know, they were already looking like they were having problems when I got here in the 90s. But I believe that the Riverfront Commission and its predecessor task force spent a lot of time evaluating the infrastructure that had been had been built prior to this plan and determined that it would be best not to have structures hanging over the river. And without getting into some other messy issues, I think I should stop there.
Thank you. It's 8:30, but let's just take this last final one. Were the structures at Michael's Landing chimneys?
I
Do you
I
know?
don't know. I didn't, I don't have a photo that has those in there.
Sure, sure. Great. Well, we just got through all the questions and it is 8:30, so that is pretty perfect. Thank you, Rebecca. Thank you, Dave. That was fascinating. Thank you
Thank you,
for bringing us
Bonnie.
together.
Thank
Oh,
you,
yes, my
Bonnie.
pleasure.
Yes.
My pleasure. The library is really happy to get to host these. So, and be sure to share the video far and wide with anyone who's interested. Look for it on our YouTube channel when it gets there. Share it with folks via email. Thanks so much for joining us tonight, and we hope to see you next year at our next Frenkel series. All right,
Thank you.
take care,
Okay,
everybody. Good night.
bye-bye.